She said 500,000 when you can, then you open up all doors. It was desperate, it was tragic, it was honest, too honest. The fallout was immediate. Buckingham Palace did its best version of shocked silence, cold and dignified. Andrew retreated behind thick palace walls. And Fergie, she went into media exile. Again, but exile doesn't last long when you're entertaining, when you're the one royal who knows how to cry on Oprah and still make people laugh 5 minutes later. She started
If you enjoyed this, tap like, subscribe, and share. It tells the algorithm that this content matters, and it helps us keep creating more.
popping up again. Slowly, a podcast here, a charity gala there, a book tour, another memoir, a heartfelt documentary about second chances. And the public? We ate it up, because here's the uncomfortable truth. We love our royals messy. We say we want tradition, dignity, stiff upper lips, and ironed trousers. But what really sells are the flaws, the scandals, the glimpses of humanity under all that lace and lineage. Fergie delivers that in spades. She is royal chaos personified. She is bankruptcy in a ball gown. She is debt-wearing, diamonds like it earned them, and while she may not be a working royal anymore, she still works that image harder than anyone in the monarchy, harder arguably than anyone ever did, because for her it's not a title, it's a lifeline. The Duchess persona keeps her afloat. It opens doors. It cushions falls. It justifies the extravagance. But here's the twist. It also traps her, because the public will forgive almost anything. Scandal, debt, even that 2010 video. As long as she keeps playing the part, as long as she's smiling, teetering in heels, juggling debt and public pity, with the grace of a woman who's learned to fall with style. But the second she slips, the second she stops being entertaining, the knives come back out. She knows this. You can see it in her eyes in interviews. That flicker of exhaustion under the charm. That faint, weary ache of someone who's been fighting uphill battles in high heels for 30 years and knows the terrain. Never gets easier. But she'll never quit, because quitting isn't in her nature. Fergie doesn't walk away. She walks back in every time, through the scandal, through the mockery, through the financial hellscape of 3.7 million in debt and the relentless hunger of a press that will never, ever forget. She'll show up again. She has to. It's the only way to stay alive in a world that feeds on your failures but demands your presence. And maybe that's the real tragedy. Here, not the spending, not the scandal, not the unpaid bills or the public disgrace, but the cycle, the endless, exhausting cycle of relevance, regret, and reinvention. She can't stop, she can't afford to, because the moment she disappears, she becomes irrelevant. And irrelevance for a former royal is the closest thing to death, so she'll keep going. Another interview, another brand collaboration, another vaguely inspiring book about resilience, and we'll watch, because we can't help it, because Fergie is a car crash in slow motion, wearing designer sunglasses and quoting self-help books in the wreckage, and we love her for it or hate her or both, but we watch, because deep down, some quiet part of us recognizes her chaos. It's not royal, it's human. The desperate scramble to stay seen, stay wanted, stay valuable in a world that discards women the moment they stop being convenient. So maybe the next time you see her name in a headline, surrounded by another spending spree, another borrowed luxury, another tabloid whisper, you won't roll your eyes. You'll remember that Fergie is doing exactly what she was trained to do. Survive with a smile, even if she's drowning in debt behind it. Let's not pretend she hasn't heard the whispers. You know the ones, soft and sharp, floating across linen-covered tables at Mayfair luncheons or muttered in the echoing marble hallways of Kensington. She's at it again, they say. Fergie can't help herself. Always spending. Always scheming. Always a few Gucci bags ahead of common sense, and yet somehow always back, because for Sarah Ferguson, scandal is not a misstep. It's a rhythm, a second skin, a shadow that follows her in Chanel heels and refuses to let her go quietly. She's not merely part of the royal drama. She is its chaotic heartbeat. The Duchess who never learned to sit still or shut up or stop overspending. But you have to understand something. Fergie was never bred for the cage. She wasn't born into the kind of polished restraint that royalty demands. She grew up in the countryside, all red cheeks and fox hunts. A girl who laughed too loudly and wanted more than what the world politely offered. When she married into the firm, it was like trying to pin a hurricane to a dinner table. And when the marriage unraveled, predictably, catastrophically, it wasn't just her title that began to crack. It was her whole identity. But what do you do when the palace doors close and the fairy tale ends? You monetize the ashes. Fergie took her fall and turned it into a stage. The talk shows, the book deals, the wellness retreats and diet plans and product endorsements. She didn't shrink in disgrace. She expanded, filling the vacuum with anything she could sell, say, or borrow, sometimes successfully, sometimes catastrophically, always expensively. There was the time she tried to launch a lifestyle brand. It tanked. There were children's books, memoirs, fiction, some of them charming, some of them not. There were charity appearances, partnerships with obscure wellness companies, a brief and baffling foray into historical documentaries, and through it all, the debts mounted, quietly, relentlessly, like a slow financial flood. You don't see it until it's at your neck. Fergie never had the talent for austerity. Austerity, after all, doesn't sparkle. It doesn't photograph well. You can't wear it on a red carpet. And Sarah Ferguson, Duchess of York or not, is nothing if not committed to sparkle, even if the light bulb flickers behind the scenes. She once spent thousands on flower arrangements for a lunch, with no press, just to feel something close to beauty. She once reportedly booked an entire private jet just to attend a fashion show in Milan and return before dinner. Because connections matter, because image matters. Because if you stop looking like royalty, you stop being treated like it. And she needs to be treated like it because deep down, she knows something the rest of the royals never admit. Once the public forgets you're royal, you're just weirdly rich and vaguely unemployed. That's the tightrope she walks. No palace to protect her. No title strong enough to deflect scrutiny. Just Sarah, clinging to a crown of relevance with chipped nails and a grin. And behind her, her financial history that reads like a Greek tragedy, rewritten by a Beverly Hills accountant. Let's be clear, $3.7 million in debt doesn't happen overnight. That's not a single bad investment or an unfortunate vacation budget. That's a lifestyle, a sustained, devoted commitment to outspending. Reality: credit cards maxed out for designer clothes. Luxury: properties leased then lost. Security: teams paid to escort her to parties no one remembers. Attending private chefs, private stylists, private jets, public disasters, and yet no bankruptcy. No formal declaration of surrender. Because Fergie doesn't do surrender. Not in public. Not when there's still one more interview. One more project, one more wealthy acquaintance who might just be willing to help her out. Over a glass of champagne and a strategically dropped mention of a new memoir in the works. This is not a woman who stops. This is a woman who reinvents, and reinvention, in the post-Diana royal ecosystem, is a blood sport. Fergie knows that better than anyone. She watched as her best friend became a martyr, as Camilla became queen, as Meghan became a lightning rod. And through it all she's remained, not in power, not in favor, but present, persistent, a duchess in exile, waving cheerfully from the edge of the frame. She doesn't have to be invited to the wedding. She'll just do a press tour the week before. She doesn't need a balcony appearance. She'll get her photo on page 6 instead. The press loves her, not because she's perfect, but because she's predictable. Because she'll always say too much. Because she can't resist the limelight, no matter how many times it burns her. Because she's a gift to gossip and a curse to PR teams, and deep down because she's human. Tragically, gloriously human. Who among us hasn't overspent trying to feel better? Who hasn't said too much at the wrong dinner party? Who hasn't tried to make themselves lovable by being loud, by being generous, by being seen? Fergie just does it on a royal scale, with tiaras and debt and emotional whiplash. And that's what makes her so dangerous to the sanitized, curated image of royalty. She's a living reminder that the crown doesn't always purify, that titles don't guarantee grace, that sometimes the palace produces not princesses but people, full of flaws and hunger and heartbreak, and still somehow dressed to the nines. It's no surprise that, despite it all, people want her at their events. She's entertaining. She's unpredictable. She's Fergie. You don't get that kind of character from the new generation of polished, photogenic royals who speak in sound bites and blink in sync. Fergie is chaos, and chaos sells. Let's talk about royalty, not the kind that rules empires, but the kind that spends like it still does. Fergie, the Duchess of York, Sarah Ferguson. If we're being formal, though formality starts to unravel when the wine's flowing. The jet is private, and the bill's being passed to someone else. Her life? It's not so much a rags-to-riches tale as it is a riches-to-ridiculousness spiral, a cautionary saga of champagne tastes, financial black holes, and tabloid front pages that practically steam with the scent of scandal. You may know her as the ex-wife of Prince Andrew, but Fergie's most enduring title isn't Duchess, it's debtor-in-chief, and not by a little. We're talking about $3.7 million in debt. Personal debt, not inherited, not absorbed by some obscure royal contingency fund. This wasn't about a palace roof collapsing or a corgi rehab center needing last-minute funding. This was spending pure and unfiltered. Think royal feasts, five-star suites, couture wardrobes that could clothe small nations. And jets, always jets, because apparently commercial flights are for peasants and press photographers. Now, if you're wondering how someone gets to that level of financial entropy, let's unpack it carefully, with velvet gloves and a fire extinguisher, because behind every outrageous purchase is a reason, a justification. Taya whispered, "I deserve this," floating above a dinner plate that costs more than your monthly rent. Start with the lifestyle. Once you've married into the firm, royalty's PR-friendly nickname for itself, you don't just wear tiaras. You inhale opulence. You breathe rarefied air scented with generational wealth and a faint whiff of scandal. And when your marriage to the Queen's favorite son disintegrates in a very public implosion, you don't just walk away. You stumble, with designer heels still on your feet. Divorce didn't come with a permanent payday. Fergie, unlike Diana, walked away with a fraction of the fortune and a mountain of ambition. She wanted to write books, launch lifestyle brands, do talk shows, become relevant on her own terms. But reinvention is expensive. Reinvention, when you still expect to live like a Windsor, is a death sentence for your bank account. There were reports of dinners costing thousands, single meals devoured in the ambient glow of Michelin stars and financial delusion. There were cosmetic procedures, because aging gracefully is only an option if your publicist approves. There were bespoke vacations, private safaris, designer handbags that cost more than most cars. Each swipe of the card another step closer to the abyss. And then there were the friends, oh yes, the friends, the kind that loan you cash with one hand and tighten the noose with the other. Saudi businessmen, shady consultants, that now infamous undercover sting operation where she was caught on camera offering access to Prince Andrew for a tidy sum of $500,000. Cash, preferably, she said, smiling. It was desperate. It was damning. It was very Fergie. But what do you do when the money runs out and the bills don't? You hustle hard. You sell children's books. You pitch wellness products. You pretend the scandal is behind you, while it's still sitting in your guest house sipping Dom Perignon. And maybe, just maybe, you call in a favor from the man who still lives with you. Yes, that man, Prince Andrew. The royal family's walking PR crisis. They never stopped cohabitating, by the way. Even after the divorce, same house, different wings. A relationship that's part friendship, part financial necessity, part mutual insulation against the world. When you've both been publicly roasted to the point of char, maybe it's comforting to share a roof with someone else who knows how it feels. And through all this, the debt grows, because that's the thing about debt. It doesn't sleep. It doesn't pause for public image rehab. It just builds, slowly, silently, like mold beneath the wallpaper of luxury. And yet, Fergie keeps spending. Because how do you stop? How do you go from being served caviar in a palace to checking your bank account before ordering lunch? How do you downshift from silk sheets to supermarket brands when your entire identity is wrapped in velvet and scandal? You don't. You keep pretending, you keep showing up in front rows and charity galas, hoping no one asks who paid for your ticket. You stay famous enough to be invited, but not so famous that someone digs too deep. But eventually the facade cracks. People talk. Reports leak. The press circles like hungry sharks with gold-plated teeth. And suddenly your private jet isn't a symbol of status, it's evidence. Your red carpet is a breadcrumb trail to your bankruptcy. And yet here's the strangest part. People still root for her. There's something undeniably human about Fergie's chaos. She's flawed, spectacularly, flamboyantly flawed. But she owns it. She apologizes. She bounces back. She reinvents herself with the desperate enthusiasm of a woman who knows the wolves are always 2 steps behind. She's not cold like Charles. She's not regal like Diana. She's not aloof like Camilla. Fergie is messy, warm, volcanic, the kind of royal you could imagine, drunkenly confessing her regrets to a bartender in Monaco at 3 a.m. And maybe that's why the headlines keep coming, because her story isn't about royalty. It's about relatability. What happens when you've had it all and still wanted more? What happens when you confuse visibility with value, attention with affection, access with power? You end up in debt, not just financial, but emotional, spiritual, reputational. You become the Duchess of Decline, the Princess of Poor Choices, and yet you survive, because that's what Fergie does. Over and over again she survives, she talks, she self-deprecates. She writes more books, she does more interviews, she grins and spins the narrative until people forget what the last scandal even was. She becomes lovable again, then scandalous, then sympathetic. It's a cycle, one she knows intimately, and now, with whispers of memoir deals, Netflix interest, and a renewed public curiosity in the crumbling castles of the aristocracy, Fergie is back. Still in debt, probably. Still extravagant. Still saying things in interviews that make Buckingham Palace staffers reach for their blood pressure medication. But she's here uncancelled, unrepentant, unkillable. So, the next time you see a headline about her latest indulgence, a Seoul $15,000 spa weekend perhaps, or a designer coat she forgot she couldn't afford, don't roll your eyes, just smile. Because somewhere in that ridiculous, reckless spiral is the most honest depiction of modern royalty you'll ever find. Not a crown, not a throne, just a woman who once had the world, lost it, and still insists on flying first class toward the next mistake. And if that isn't the most human story of all, I don't know what is. Analog Horror Explainer said, she doesn't tiptoe into the headlines anymore, she cannonballs in. Face first, lip-glossed, occasionally overdrawn. Always over it, because Fergie, bless her, doesn't do subtle. She never did. Even when she was still Her Royal Highness, she had the kind of loud, unfiltered charm that made Buckingham Palace visibly twitch. While Diana played the part with tragic grace, Fergie was the messy cousin with a laugh too big for the drawing room, a redhead tornado in pearls and mischief, always 5 minutes late and unapologetically hungry for life, for love, for just more. But here's the thing about people who want too much. They usually get it, and then they lose it, and then they want it again. Rinse, repeat, tabloid fodder forever. Let's go back a bit. Rewind to when it all started coming apart. Not the marriage that had already fizzled into a polite, photograph-worthy arrangement. No, I'm talking about the unraveling of the financial seams. The mounting IOUs, the debt collectors whispering like ghosts just outside the grand estate gates. It was the late 2000s, and Fergie wasn't just overspending, she was drowning in it. Creditors were circling. She owed money to everyone and their accountant. Luxury brands, private security firms, event planners. One day it was a missed hotel bill in Geneva. The next it was a 6-figure wardrobe debt. And the story always came back the same. She didn't think she'd have to pay, why would she? She was a duchess, she was Fergie. People like her don't deal with bills. That's what assistants are for. Or ex-husbands. Or some helpful foreign businessman who believes in second chances. The idea of consequences was always somewhat abstract until it wasn't. Until she got caught on tape, you remember that, right? The moment that made even her most loyal defenders wince. A grainy undercover video. A journalist posing as a fixer. Their promise, £500,000 for access to Prince Andrew. The worst part wasn't the money. It wasn't even the implication that the royal gates could be rented for the price of a London townhouse. It was how casual she was about it. Legs crossed. Glass of wine. A weary smile like she was just so over-pretending everything was okay. Like the mask had finally slipped, and all that was left was a tired woman doing what she'd always done, surviving by any means necessary.
Thanks so much for watching. If you made it all the way to the end, you're officially part of the small percentage of people who don't just click away, and that means a lot. Before you go, I'd love to hear from you. Drop a comment below and tell me your thoughts, your ideas, or even what you'd like to see next. I read every single one of them, and your feedback genuinely shapes the direction of this channel. If you enjoyed the video, tap that like button. It tells YouTube this content is worth sharing. And if you haven't already, hit subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next upload. We've got more exciting videos coming, and trust me, you'll want to be here for them. This channel is just getting started, and your support helps it grow faster than you realize. Thank you again for spending a part of your day here with me. Stay curious, stay motivated, and as always, take care of yourself. Until next time, I'll see you in the next video.